It's been an incredibly busy year for the camera industry in 2024, with some major releases, from Sony's global shutter camera, the Sony A9III, to Canon's flagship camera, the R1. But what can we expect from Canon moving forward? Today, let's have a look at a few rumour mills and a few camera and lens predictions for 2025. And I'm going to start right now. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing and ringing the bell to stay in the loop and be notified when we release new videos. So before we go ahead and have a look at a few camera and lens predictions for 2025, let's have a quick recap of 2024 and have a look at see what Canon have actually released this year. Well, in my opinion, they've actually had quite a busy year. They had the release of the R5 Mark II, as well as the flagship camera that everyone was waiting for, the Canon R1, as well as they've released two cinema cameras, the Canon C80, which actually I have on pre-order, I'm just waiting for it to arrive, as well as the more expensive Canon C400, designed to replace the older Canon C300 Mark III. They also had quite a few lenses released as well, with a whole range of new hybrid lenses designed not just for photographers, but filmmakers. The first lens they released this year was the RF 35mm f1.4L Z lens, and this has also got a new style of autofocus system. And to follow that, later on in the year, they also had the RF 24mm f1.4 and also the RF 50mm f1.4. And to follow that, they also had two dual fisheye lenses designed to work with Canon's APS-C range of cameras, most notably the R7. They were the RFS 3.9mm f3.5 dual fisheye lens, as well as the RFS 7.8mm f4 dual lens. And who can forget the kind of major lens release they had this year was the RF 70-200mm f2.8Z, a lens that you can actually choose the color, either white or black. And this kind of follows the same rhetoric. It's a hybrid lens designed to work with not just for photographers, but also filmmakers. And it's basically the exact same size as the lens that got released last year, the RF 24-105mm f2.8. And obviously they released their standard budget-friendly zoom lens, the RF 28-70mm f2.8 STM. So as you can see, they've released a lot this year. And actually, a lot of the stuff that they released have caused a lot of predictions to appear for 2025. So let's have a look at a few rumour mills to see what we can expect, or at least what we can predict in 2025. Now, some camera and lens predictions are going to seem a lot more far-fetched than others. So to kind of fix that issue, instead of putting them all on the same pedestal, I have made this little chart here, the how likely is this prediction going to happen chart, from 0% all the way to 100%. So we can kind of gauge how likely some predictions are going to come true in 2025. So let's have a look at a few lens predictions first. So the first prediction is this. This is the Canon RF 85mm f1.4L VCM-Z. So this is going to follow a lot of the hybrid lenses we saw in 2024 as well as 2023. Now the reason I say it's going to be an 85mm, and it's for two reasons. Firstly, I think there needs to be a hybrid lens with a little bit more of a telephoto reach. At the moment we've got a 24mm, a 35mm and a 50mm, but also I think there's currently a gap. If you actually have a look at the lineup with the RF system, you see we've got an RF 85 f2, which is more budget friendly, and a macro lens, and then we've got the RF 85 1.2, which is an incredibly expensive portrait lens. So I think we already need a lens in the middle, and I think a hybrid lens kind of fixed that. It's the same situation with the 50mm. We have a 50mm f1.8, very cheap, and then we have a 50mm f1.2, very expensive. So we've got the 50mm f1.4, which fits in the middle, and I think this lens here is actually going to solve the same problem, but for the 85mm prime lens lineup. Now, how likely is this going to happen? I think very likely, and in fact, I'm actually going to put this as one of the highest. I'm going to put this around 90%, because I think this is a very likely lens to happen in maybe the first or second quarter of 2025. Now, my second prediction is very similar, and that is this, the Canon 18mm or some kind of ultra wide angle prime lens, again, a hybrid lens. Now, if for the same situation as the 85mm, there isn't really a premium ultra wide angle lens currently available. You've got the widest, which is around 24mm, and then you've got the RF 16mm f2.8, which actually I own. It's a really nice lens, but it's not an L series quality. So we need some kind of L series lens to fill that gap. And again, if it's a hybrid lens, I also think that's going to be really, really good. So I don't think it's going to be as likely as the 85mm. I think that's going to be a very popular lens if they sell that. But this one here, I think I'll probably around about 80%. I think that's going to be a very popular lens, but I'm not sure if it will be released in 2025. But I think more likely around 85% I think is a good shout there. But yeah, these two lenses here, I can imagine actually being released at the same time if that does happen in 2025. Now, another prediction I've seen is RF tilt shift lenses. Now, these lenses allow you to basically shift the almost plane of focus. It's a very interesting type of lens. I've never actually used one myself. Great for keeping leading lines nice and straight, especially for architecture photography. And currently, there's not a single RF mirrorless lens available. You'd have to adapt it using the EF to RF adapter. Now, grant you, they're not the most popular lenses in the world, so I don't imagine these are going to sell very well, but I haven't got a single one for the modern RF camera. So it'll be really interesting to see if they actually create one, maybe a 17mm or some kind of 24mm lens. Now, the likelihood of this happening, I don't know. I'd probably put this bang smack in the middle, around 50%, because although they do need to make some tilt shift lenses, I'm not sure if the market is necessarily there in 2025. If they do release it, it kind of makes sense to release it next year, but they haven't released or haven't even announced anything like that so far. So this is a bit more of an interesting prediction. Not sure if it will come true, so I'll probably keep it around 50%. And on a similar note, Canon, more Canon RFS lenses, maybe more prime lenses. Now, so far, their APS-C lens lineup is pretty rubbish. Their cameras are really great. The R7's a really nice camera. The R10 is a very well-selling camera, but the lenses are pretty much non-existent. In fact, actually, Sigma released a whole range of APS-C lenses, which are far better than the Canon native ones. So something that I think they need to fix, this isn't a want, this is a need, I think, is more RFS lenses and good quality ones. Maybe even a few L series one. I'm not sure if that will ever happen. But I would, again, probably place this a little bit higher or more lightly than the tilt shift lenses. I'd probably place it around 65% it happening next year. It's something that I definitely think needs to happen and more of. They need to have some nice, good quality ones to sell more of their cameras, but I don't know, now with the release of Sigma APS-C lenses, is there a need for Canon native ones? But yeah, around 65% I think is a good shout for more RFS lenses, or good quality ones anyway, in 2025. Now, I saw this one and I thought, oh, that would be very interesting if they release it. But again, I'm not too sure if this is going to happen. And this is the Canon RF 24 to 70mm f2.8LZ. So this kind of follows the very similar 24 to 105mm f2.8 and 70 to 200mm f2.8 hybrid zoom lenses. That's what the Z stands for in its name. Now, I'm not sure if this would necessarily happen because they've already got the 24 to 105, and this has got a very similar focal length. It would be more of a budget orientated version because that is a very expensive lens, but I'm not sure if there's a necessarily need for it. It would be an internally zooming and internally focused lens, so it would balance really nice on a gimbal, unlike the current 24 to 70mm. But I know a lot of people that shoot on it already for filmmaking. They can easily balance it on a gimbal. It's not a difficult lens to balance. So this lens here, although I saw a lot of people talking about it, I'm less likely to believe this rumour than others. I would like to see it, but I'm not sure if there's already a lot of standard zoom lenses out there. You've got the 28 to 70 f2, the 28 to 70 f2.8, the 24 to 70 f2.8, as well as you've also got the 24 to 105, f4 and f2.8. So there's already a lot of lenses. It's a very saturated part of the market. So to add another lens, it might complicate a few things. So in my opinion, I'm gonna probably place this in the lower end, probably around, I don't know, 20%. This is, I think, less likely to happen, but you never know, Canon might surprise me. And my last prediction is a prediction that I see constantly on the internet, but so far hasn't come true, and that is this: Sigma full frame RF lenses. Now, I think this will be amazing. If this happens, Canon are going to sell bucket loads of cameras, but so far, they've been very reluctant, and I'm not too sure why. It's worked really well for Sony. Sony still sell a massive range of their G Master glass, but they also sell a massive range of cameras, and if Canon did it, I think they'd do a really, really good job on it. But so far, it hasn't happened. Well, kind of. In 2024, in March, Sigma announced that they're going to be releasing APS-C RF lenses, but not full frame ones. In fact, I've actually reviewed one last year, their 10 to 18mm. So I'm not too sure why it hasn't happened yet. but so far it hasn't. And what's the likelihood of it happening in 2025? Well, before the release of the APS-C lenses, it was a lot lower down here. It was almost 0%. But now they've released APS-C lenses, I think it's more likely we're going to see full frames in 2025, or maybe at least to the later part of 2025. So I think I'm going to put this slightly higher than 50%. Let's place it about here. Let's place it around 60%. I really want it to happen. I think it really needs to happen, but so far Canon have been quite reluctant. Right, so that's enough talking about lens predictions. Now let's have a look at a few camera predictions. And actually, I think they're going to be releasing quite a few cameras next year. 2024 was full of very expensive, very high-end full-frame cameras. So actually, I think this year we're going to see a lot more budget-orientated APS-C and even some second-generation APS-C cameras. And the first one I want to talk about is this. This is the Canon EOS R7 Mark II. Now the R7 one was a very popular camera for wildlife and sports photographers, so I can imagine the R7 Mark II is going to be just as popular. This is going to be like a baby R1, I think. It's going to be a very popular. So I'm actually thinking they're probably going to release it. The R7 was released a few years ago, so a second generation is probably needed. And actually having a stacked version makes a lot of sense. So I'm going to place that around about 65-70% chance of being released in 2025. Now the next camera prediction I've been predicting since about 2020, and I've always been wrong, so again I might be wrong this year, and that is the Canon R5S or R5SR. Now if you're wondering what the S would mean, it basically means like a super resolution version of the R5. Very similar to how Sony have got the A7R system. This is kind of replicate that but in the Canon ecosystem. They've actually done it before with the Canon 5DS and 5DSR back in around 2015, but will they do it again? Well, I've been predicting this since about 2021. If you have a look at my older prediction videos, I've always said, oh, they're going to release like a 60 to 90 megapixel camera, and so far they haven't done that. So are they going to be releasing this again? Well, I've been wrong so far, so I'm going to go by that. I'm going to probably put this on the lower end. I think they're going to be releasing a high resolution camera next year, around, I don't know, 20%, maybe slightly less. I don't think this is necessarily going to happen. I think they will sell a lot if they do, but I'm not sure if they need a higher resolution than 45 megapixels. Sony sell a lot, but will Canon? I don't think so. So yeah, I'm going to put this probably around 20%. I'd love it to happen, but I don't think it will. Now, another prediction I've seen is this, the Canon R200. Now, this is going to be very similar to the R100, but slightly cheaper, because currently, they don't really have a lot of very inexpensive Canon cameras. Now, I'm not sure if there's a market for it, but the R200 could fix a lot of the problems that the R100 had. Most notably, touchscreen. The R100 does not have a touchscreen, and a camera that doesn't have touchscreen in 2024 is bonkers. So having a camera that cheap with a touchscreen, I do think is important to get people shooting, get people into photography, and an R200 could be quite interesting to see. Now, a lot of rumour mills were talking about this, so I actually think this is more likely to happen than not. So I'm probably going to put this about here. More likely than Canon RFS lenses being popular. So I think the R200 will sit about here, around about 75% chance of happening in 2025. Now, another camera that keeps appearing on a lot of prediction websites is this, the R1X. Now, this is going to be apparently a hyper-resolution version of the R1. So the R1 is around 24 megapixels. The R1X will apparently be around 50, and it will kind of be very similar to the Sony A1 Mark II that's been released. Now, I'm not sure if this is going to happen in 2025. They've just released the R1 last year, so will they release an R1X, a high resolution version? I'm not too sure. Plus, they've got the R5 Mark II, which is a very good camera. Granted, it's not a specific sports and wildlife camera, and it's a slightly smaller camera than the R1, but it would tread on its toes, I think. So an R1X, although a lot of people are talking about it, I do think it's less likely. I'll probably put it slightly higher than 25%. I'll probably put it here right next to the R5S. I just don't think a higher resolution version of their flagship is going to be appearing at least next year. 2026, more likely, but 2025, I don't think so. And my last camera on my prediction list is actually a cinema camera, and it is this, the Canon C40. Now this will be a direct competitor to the Sony FX30 that they've got. I would say the C80 and the FX3 are similar, although I would say the C80 is naturally a little bit better because it's got built-in NDs and XLRs and whatnot, but they don't have a competitor to the FX30, and that's a very good selling camera for Sony. So I think they're going to be releasing a C40 A940 or something like that, a more budget-orientated cinema camera that's maybe under £3,000. I think it would be a very good seller. No, I would definitely buy it as a content creator. But will they release it in 2025? Well, now they've moved the Canon C80 to full frame and the C400 to full frame, it's a perfect spot. Having a smaller Super 35 cinema camera would fit in the ecosystem really, really nicely. So actually, I think this is going to happen more often, more likely anyway, than pretty much any other camera, I think. So I think I'm probably going to place this around about 60% chance. They've just had a big range of cinema cameras released, so I don't know if they're going to release it in 2025, but having a camera like this in the future, I think would be very popular. And there we go. Here is my how likely chart for 2025. From least likely, from the R5S, because I always seem to get that wrong, to the RF 24 to 70mm f2.8Z, all the way to most likely, from the RF 18mm f1.4Z to the RF 85mm f1.4LZ. This lens here, I am really excited about. I'll probably pre-order it as soon as I hear it comes out. But of course, follow along. What do you think? What's more or less likely to happen for Canon in 2025? Make sure to write it down in the comments below. Thank you to everybody that supported me this year. I have grown a considerable amount of YouTube. I'm almost at 100,000 subscribers, which I am super excited about. I'll probably hit it maybe in the first part of next year. So make sure if you really like this content, make sure to go ahead and subscribe. And if you really like this content and want to get some awesome perks, make sure to go ahead and join my YouTube membership program that contains some awesome perks, including free Lightroom presets. Thank you to everybody that supported me, and I'll see you guys in 2025. I've been James for Photo Fever, and I'll catch you guys next year.